I I kind of was putting things, I guess, in a more broad way to start, but for me, a thing that I have tried to be, I guess, mindful of, and that I've certainly put a lot of time into reflecting on, is that our world is changing a lot right now, and one of the great things in it is that there's a greater awareness, I think, about what we practice and what we preach, particularly in America. I take it back to some of the older, I think maybe easier to see ideals of documents written with saying things like, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that there's a pursuit of liberty and justice for all. Even in our documents of our foundings of America, a separation of church and state. And for me, I feel like, well, none of those are true. And I think that's okay to say, because I think, again, the first step is acknowledging it. I don't necessarily think it means we need to just somehow amend everything to fit what's already written. I think it needs to be, we need to talk about what's written, we need to talk about what we're doing, and we need to figure out who are we now, and what are we trying to be progressing forward, and that it's that combination of both. And I know for me, that certainly comes back to just, every time of trying to think through all my lessons of trying to be a good Christian every day. I was raised Roman Catholic and baptized, had my first penance and communion, confirmed. I was an altar server, a lector, and a cantor. I've always worked in church, and have always had my first love of music through sacred music. My question after all of that would be, do you have any thoughts or anything that you try to offer to your congregations in these times, particularly with how much 2020 has brought us to, I think, a new awareness and a new just mindfulness of what we really have to try to do in our day-to-day lives to be good people, to be true to our identity, to our own health, as well as to our own creeds and beliefs and faiths. And if there's any reflections or any thoughts that you have to that, be it from just your own perspective or things that you have shared from others that are certainly trying to navigate these paths during this time. Really, if anyone would like to, you're welcome to either just unmute yourself, or if you want to go through, I'm always fine with that good old fashioned of like raise a hand or use a hand reaction if you'd like to speak. But Vincent, Richard, Hannah, if any of you have any thoughts that you would either like to share to kind of just start a little bit of a conversation. Please. Yes.
I'll raise my hand. Hi, Richard Lee. I'm an Episcopal priest in City Heights at St. Mark's, and my ministry colleague Hannah Wilder is here with us as well. And when BG sent me the question, I thought, all men are created equal. I'm fine with that. That's fundamental Christian principle. Liberty and justice for all. Again, I'm fine with that. That's basic Christian 101. But when we think about this year and all that's happened this year and Black Lives Matter, I think that one of the things that we try to do as a congregation is really bring an awareness that, the white European American church has got it wrong. And we need to correct that. We need to acknowledge it. We need to actually work for restoration and reconciliation and justice. And in the Episcopal Church, we're very lucky. We have a program called Sacred Ground, which is a small group course based on American history through race and racism. And it takes Black, Latino, Asian, Pacific American histories and looks at how they intersect with European American, and really gets the small groups to think about you know, how we've seen history in the past and how, you know, that's been a European American history, and that needs to be corrected. And so we're lucky that we have that. We have two groups at St. Mark's which go along with that. We're starting from being in a position of, you know, injustice, and so for that racial healing to occur, for that reconciliation, for justice in our own lives, and then in ministry, and then that obviously goes out into society as well. And so we have to be active and acknowledge the role we've had, acknowledge that we've been wrong, and then move forward as well. Just my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Vincent, please.
My name is Vincent. I'm a discipleship director for my church. My church is in Spring Valley. It's New Seasons Church. As far as how the society and government match with church, we don't really try to pair them together. And my teachings and the way we teach at our church, we are, and what I do mainly is to help people to decide whether or not they really want to be Christians. And if we want to live the Christian life, then we have to understand what that life looks like, what that life is. As believers, we have a completely different code, a completely different standard than what society says the standard is supposed to be. They don't mix well at all. So we end up being at odds a lot of the times. When it comes to we the people and everybody equal, as far as society is concerned, that's never, as far as I'm concerned, let me say, that's never going to come to fruition. We will never see ourselves equal because society is designed to be one-upmanship. In order for me to be who I think I ought to be, I've got to be over somebody else. There's got to be somebody under me. That's completely opposite of what Christianity says. Christianity says we're in this together. It takes all of us to make this work. So I don't know that I would try to make Christians be the change for society, but I also wouldn't try to make society change to be Christians other than individually. If you decide that Jesus is who he says he is, that's a whole different thing. So my approach is based on where are you? Who do you want to be? And then let's live that life.
Thank you. Thank you for that as well. I mean, I agree with everything you're both saying. And I would say that I think that's probably been a bit closer to what has been my path in navigation, particularly as I said, for me, I'm a music guy. I've certainly always had my connection to music through the church and through sacred music. You know, I on my most mornings I spend some time meditating with different just kind of karma music, yoga music, but at times I'm just going back to Gregorian chants because that's always just been a part of it. So it's a constant thing for me, certainly. And I think that's what has allowed me, as I have moved particularly from different congregations, but even from different sects of faith, it's always allowed me to still return back to keeping my own faith and keeping that in my path. And I guess in some ways that's made me feel like it's always been so intertwined, but I really understand what you're saying. I think I really hear you, what you're saying, Vincent, particularly on how it's a matter of what you're choosing for yourself individually on what you're following, but from there, it's also what you're making of that and how, you know, yeah, there's Thank you. It's like I feel like my brain is a little more at ease on some of this.